It's a good day for a good day. Hello, everybody. My name's Cece Ray. Thanks for joining me here at Break the Dish, where we break the news and dish out the tea. We're talking, that's right, Ladies of London, recapping season 4, episode 7. And let's get into it. But before we do, you know what to do, breakers. I ask it all the time, so do it. Just do it. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, because here we break the dish. We are recapping The Ladies of London, The New Reign, Season 4, Episode 7. We see Myka with her brother who is visiting. His name is Bron, and apparently he lives in Boston. He is a trainer, and he's here for Myka's birthday. And so they're getting ready to train in the park. Margo, Missè, Martha, they join them as well. And she's talking about how usually she does a polo lunch for her birthday. And this year she would like to do something a little bit different. So she wants to take a polo class, which I kind of find pretty cool. And, Margo, I mean, not Margo. Martha says her brother looks like a happy puppy with a mustache, which I thought was so funny. So after they're all done working out and everything, Myka says to Margo, "How you doing? After that picnic, it was a little rough, And because remember, Margo got into it with Kimi and Mark, actually, too. And in Margo's confessional, she says, when you are being ganged up on by two people and the rest of the group is neutral, you're being ganged up on. So, she says, Martha says to Margo, look, Kimi, she has like a really big heart, like a heart of gold, but she's a tiger. And if you get on the wrong side, those claws come out and they can be vicious. And Myka says, yeah, and the both of you are similar. Like, you both could probably be best friends. You share a best friend, talking about Martha. Did you notice how all of them have M names? Like, seriously? Like, you've got Margo, Martha, Myka, Missè, Mark. Really weird, right? I think even some husbands' names are M. I'm just saying, it's really weird. I digress. But anyway, and then Martha says, that Mark isn't mean either. She says, he's always playing for the laugh, but the ironic thing is that, he's trying to be funny, but sometimes he does come across as being mean when genuinely he's not a mean person. Then Margo in her confessional says, look, Kimi is forthcoming, but Mark, he's two-faced. And so then Margo says to the ladies, like, look, he is so insecure. And that clown thing that he does, he's just, begging for everyone's approval. And then to show who, his true self is. I don't know what it is about Margo. She's kind of rubbing me the wrong way. She actually started rubbing me the wrong way when a couple episodes back, when Martha was having that complete meltdown in the storage unit and talking about how she like gave this guy her keys and, she was trusting him and all that stuff. And you remember that? And Margo was like, I don't know if I can be your friend anymore, Martha. I don't know. It's just something about her. Just rubs me the wrong way. Then we see Mark. He is in his home. Remember, he just bought a home in Florence because he wanted to be closer to his dad, who is not doing well. He's explaining how he had to have this house in Florence because the Negronis owned it, just like his home in London used to be the home of Oscar Wilde. I thought that was kind of cool, actually. He's explaining how his parents have always been collectors, and, even when he was young, like he was never around people his own age, that's why he feels like, he has an old soul. Meanwhile, Margo is still going on. Like, seriously. So she's saying, Mark thinks he's funny, but he's mean. And Martha says, yeah, but he does have a heart of gold. Like, he doesn't mean to be mean, And so production now is talking with Mark, during his confessional, and they're kind of playing with him, playing a game and stuff like that. And then at one point, one of the producers says, that you have this reputation for being almost like untouchable. And Mark starts laughing and he's like, oh, I'm so pleased, and they start laughing and he says, no, it's a safety mechanism. And I see that that's his wall. That's how he protects himself. I could see that, to be honest. I really could see that. And Margo is still going off the deep end in the park with everybody else. She's saying how he's weird to give a compliment, and then the thing that he's giving you a compliment on, he then tears it down. That he's a liar, he's a psychopath. Like, who does that? There's something about Margo. I don't know what it is. I just don't like. I don't know what it is. There's just something about her I don't like. But in her confessional, she says, it's just not funny. He's not funny. He's meant to be hurtful. He's gaslighting her, and it's just not a joke. So then Myka says, well, to Margo, she says, in the moment, I see it as, okay, Margo's being attacked. Do you feel this way? No, I don't feel this way at all. I think she's pretty awesome. And, all of a sudden, Margo says to Myka, you're going to make me cry, and I'm so alone, and you're so sweet. I'm telling you, there's something up with this chick. I don't know what. And Margo says, I'm just so tired. So Martha then says, that Margo and Mark, she's talking in a confessional, that Margo and Mark are like bitching about each other. And she's worried that it's going to get to a point where they can't move on from it. And she thinks that both of them are fabulous people. And if they would just give each other a chance. I'm not even quite sure where this all came out of. I mean, I know he was taking the mickey out of her with those feathers she was wearing in the picnic, but and I don't know, this isn't like some age-old fight, argument, disagreement. It's almost like she's pulling something out of the air and trying to make it stick. I don't know. It's really weird. So then Missy says, well, maybe he needs to know about his behavior. Missè, the truth teller, you know. Myka says, well, how about, she suggests to Margo, how about me and Missè, have a conversation with him? And Margo says, he's a people pleaser, you know. It won't be long and he'll be basically back to his same old routine. Like, she just isn't letting this go at all. You know what I mean? So then we see Myka. She's talking about her birthday event coming up. And she's like, oh, God, like, I'm a little bit nervous about this. Bad time to have a party, right? We see Mark and Kimi comes over to visit Mark, and she says, so what did you think about that picnic? And Mark says, I've never seen you cry. And Kimi starts talking about how Martha is her good friend. They see each other through the good, the bad, the ugly. And this Margo starts gossiping, and Martha takes her side. And, she doesn't like her. She called her a Margo bot, which I thought was kind of funny. She's like, this Margo bot. But that's the problem with Martha. Like, she's kind to friends, to men, to strangers. Like, she's just sometimes too kind, is what she's trying to say. And then in her confessional, she is still saying that, it upsets her to see her friend, Martha, being taken advantage of. Like, she really does not like it. I like their friendship. I have to tell you, I really do. And then Mark says to Kimi, it's hard to be a good judge of character. And Kimi says, that Margo girl is using her for the people that she knows around here. It's disingenuous. Disingenuous. Did I say that right? Mark says, well, that's obvious, and she says, Martha needs to realize that, she needs to see that this person is causing trouble between all her friends, and if you're causing trouble between all your friends, there's something amiss, and Kimi says, her true colors will shine, talking about Margo. I have to say, like, I do see that Kimi and Mark, especially together, can come across like almost like bullies, but I do not like Margo. I just don't like her. I don't like her attitude. I don't like that she thinks she's better than. I don't like the way she treats Martha. I don't know. There's just something. Anyway, so now we see Martha. She's working out, and she's explaining how over the years, she's let herself go, and she had these, but she's making improvements. She had these two horses, Delilah and Daphne. And the people that she basically gave the horses to, because she couldn't afford them, keep telling her, you need to come up, see the horses, And she says she hasn't because it's just so painful, because it's just a reminder of her failings. She is so transparent. I really like Martha. Meanwhile, Margo at her house, she's American, and they are celebrating the 4th of July. She's saying she's never celebrated the 4th of July in London before. She says that they have got, in England, they have Guy Fawkes Night, which is when they have fireworks. And then Lottie goes into more detail about it. So she says that on November 5th, they have fireworks to celebrate the House of Parliament not burning down. And the person that tried to burn it down was Guy Fawkes. And so they have bonfires to signify him being burnt at the stake. It's a little weird, right? Of course, hello, England is not going to be like celebrating 4th of July. Hello. Then it was also kind of funny too because Martha got a little joke in there in her confessional, and she says, the current format, talking about the United States, she's like, maybe they would be better under a king. That was so funny. I found it amusing. But Margo is explaining how she never really saw herself being in a traditional marriage. She has married a Middle Eastern man who is traditional, He works outside the home, he takes care of his family, and she's expected basically to work inside the home, raising the children, and very traditional. And she never thought that she would ever do that. She's also there. They're all, her and the kids, and her husband, they're all outside, and they're having French fries, and they're not having hot dogs. They're having posh dogs. Can somebody please tell me what a posh dog is? I need to know this. Like, seriously. I want to know what a posh dog is. From somebody who apparently doesn't cook. I'm just saying. So then Myka is on the phone with her husband, and she's talking, in her confessional, she's explaining that her husband is half Argentine and half Swiss. So he is actually the one that introduced her to polo. They not only went on their first date, but also they got engaged on a polo field. So she's also saying, she's on the phone with him, and she's saying she's like a little nervous because this is the first time everybody's going to be seeing each other since that picnic is at her polo event, which is for her birthday. So it's party day, right? Everybody is there. Emma's back from, remember she did that 10K run. So everyone is in attendance. Margo confesses that she's just tired and she's not in the mood for bullshit. Hey. And so Kimmy says to Margo, I wore white. She has this like hat on her head, and she says, I wore white flowers to channel peace, And in Margo's confessional, she says, it also signifies death. See why I don't like Margo? There's something about her. Like, she's saying that in a confessional. It's just weird, But Margo says to Kim, there's a lot of peace going on here today. Kimmy, is there something that you would like to say? And Kimmy says, yes, I'm a piece of shit. And Margo says, finally, we agree. And of course, Martha's like, Margo, Again, there's just something about her. And Mark says, I have a way of blocking out the irrelevant things. He's like, there is nothing about Margo that fascinates him or intrigues him. He just can't be bothered with her. Like, this is what he's saying basically in his confessional, Then Missè says to Kim, I've never been to a polo game before. And Kimmy's like, oh yeah, the men are hot, but they're poor. And in her confessional, she says, if you're going to date in the polo, you want to date the owner of the team, because even the best polo players don't make that much money at all. And Missy in her confessional is like, she's ruining it. I thought that was kind of funny. And then, of course, Emma is standing there with Mark. Emma says, "How's your dad?" And Mark says, "He's in the hospital." And she's like, "Oh no, are you serious?" And in his confessional, we already knew that he was not doing well. In his confessional, he says, you see your parents reach their 80s, and now you're seeing them fragile. You're starting to understand that, life doesn't go on forever, and that, you only have so much time, and you can, especially when you're an only child, it can be powerless. You feel alone. And there's nothing you can do but like comfort them if they will accept to be comforted. And in his situation, that is not the case. So now everybody's going and they're now taking their class. Everybody's getting on their horses. Martha's explaining how horses are like her lifeblood. Like she loves horses. Kimi is sitting up there watching everyone, and she says, Martha used to be the best side saddle in the UK, and you see pictures of her when she was younger. And so then Emma says to Mark, "So I heard you got yourself in trouble." She's like, "You were causing a ruckus, and I wasn't there, And Mark says to Emma, "Yeah, I ruffled some feathers," which I thought was kind of funny. But he's like, "Yeah, and they were wearing a lot of them." He's talking about what Margo was wearing at the picnic last week. He's like, "Matter of fact, it was about 150 dead pigeons," which I thought was so funny. And Lottie is trying to be like all like, she's like, "They were ostrich." He was like, "No, darling, they were not." And Emma says, "So what ignited it?" And Lottie says, Margo thinks that Mark has been saying things behind her back. And Kimi says, "He has, and so have I." And Lottie says, "Well, she's been upset about it. Matter of fact, I heard she's been crying about it." Kimi's like, anybody that starts crying because somebody criticized their wardrobe, the lack of important issues going on in their life, like they really just don't have anything going on, And Emma said it escalated to a proper row at this party. Like, this is what it was, And Lottie says, like, well, she didn't cry there. She says, but I heard, she's been quite upset, I love Lottie. I also love how she's like 9 months pregnant and looks just bloated. I mean, like, where is she carrying this baby? Because she is not showing at all. But Emma says, in her confessional, she's saying like Mark slags her wardrobe even all the time, and sometimes she'll even wear something that she knows he's going to hate on purpose just so she can get his reaction. But Emma says, "How did it end?" And Mark says, "She left. It was quite ideal," which I liked. I find that funny. But in Lottie's confession, she says, "Who's Mark? Like, is he a fashion guru?" She says, "Who says he knows the rules of whatever somebody should be wearing, or if Margo has a right to wear whatever she wants, and what can she do without people making bitchy comments about it?" And Mark says, I don't think she will make it in London. This is what he says to everybody. He goes, I think she's more more suited for Los Angeles. And of course, the polo class is over, but Martha takes an extra ride on one of the horses. Everybody admires her riding. And Margo says, she's seen Martha on such a low, so to see her up on this horse, it almost feels like her future is bright. But Kimi, the way she said, it makes her happy to see her ride. Like, I really do like Kimi and Martha's friendship. I really do. It really does seem genuine, Then Kimi says to Martha, I am so proud of you. I've never seen anyone so beautiful riding before. And Martha says, I feel like Martha, And in her confessional, she says, I feel so good. I feel like I'm getting to be myself again, And Kimi says to Martha, life is about beautiful moments. And this is one of them. It was true, Meanwhile, Missè is now acting like a dog with a bone, the truth teller, right? She goes up to Mark. She's on a mission. She says, I would like to talk to you about Margo. She's a very nice person. And, you're saying one thing to her and then you're saying something else behind her back. And Mark says, are we going to turn this into something that it really shouldn't be? Missè says, no, it doesn't have to be. It's just that she's upset. And Mark says to Missè, so many things matter in the world. This is just not one of them. And, Missy's like still not getting it. And Mark says, look, you didn't fall off the horse. You had a great time. We're here for Myka's birthday. Like, he's really trying nicely to say, I don't want to talk about this. Missè says, yes, but she feels bullied. Like she's like her mouthpiece or something. Mark says, she's a big girl. She was not bullied. And meanwhile, Margo is saying to Dottie, I think I like being not the only one that's holding Mark-Francis accountable because she sees what Missè is doing. And Lottie says to Margo, well, he says that you do things for attention. And Margo goes, I do things for attention. Like, there is just something about this chick that rubs me the wrong way. I can't help it. And then Lottie says to Margo, look, I thought you had thicker skin than this. I mean, that you didn't give a shit. Margo says, I don't really. And Lottie says, well, the less you give a shit, the better. Like, she's trying to give her good advice here. But in Lottie's confessional, she says, look, this is a woman who's had sex on screen at the age of 21. She's not shy. And she can't stand up to Mark-Francis. Like, what is that about? I agree with Lottie. But I also think, like, she's literally, like, throwing mud and trying to see what will stick for some sort of storyline or something. Like, I don't know. Just doesn't add up. Meanwhile, Mark is still, like, stuck. Now there's Myka and Missè here. And he's saying, look, kids are dying all over the world, and we're worried about what I think of someone's dress. And Missè says, but you're upsetting her. Like, Missè, let it go. Like, at this point, I want to call Missè and say, Let it go, Missy. Mark says, look, she's going to get over it. I'm going to sit down over in this charitable corner here where there's less drama. And, this is just not right. It's someone's birthday. Just let it go. Missy says, but if you can't have a conversation, she looks at Myka. She says, if you can't have a conversation, then there's nothing I can do. Like, I can't force it. And, Myka says to Missy, well, hopefully they can still be friends and they'll start over. Yeah. So Emma does this toast for Myka's birthday, and then she invites everyone to come to Longleat so that everybody can see it. And in her confessional, she's saying, hopefully, there's enough there that will keep everybody entertained and they will not argue. That's wishful thinking, Emma. And that's how the episode ends, even though we do see the preview that doesn't go so well. You know what I mean? So what did you guys think? I have to tell you, I am enjoying Ladies of London. I really am. Margo, there's something about this chick. Messy Margo. She's messy. There's just something about her. Like I said before, I didn't like the way she treated Martha when Martha was having a complete breakdown in her storage unit. She acts like she's a good friend, but she's not really a good friend. She's always judging and criticizing, and yet she doesn't like when somebody else does it to her. And I have to agree with Kimi. It is possible that she's just using Martha because Martha knows a lot of people over there and she doesn't. It's been a hot minute since she lived there. It's been a hot minute since she worked there. Messy Margo. There's just something about her I don't like. I don't like her attitude. I don't like the way she talks. And what's up with those velvet jumpsuits? They might look good on some people, not so much on her. Just my opinion. I'm just saying. But what did you all think? I love to keep this conversation going. You know I do. And before you do, in the comments below, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Because here, we break the dish.